There's no doubt about it. Kyle Busch is the biggest free agent since Dale Earnhardt Jr. But the question is what will Kyle Busch choose? There's a ton of conflicting information, there's a ton of variables, but more importantly, new information that just came out at Watkins Glen from insiders, and multiple sources have confirmed where he could end up in 2023. I'm Alan Bailey, and today we're going to break down all the new information, including reports that say Kyle Busch will not be at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023, and that he might have already signed a deal for next season and beyond. Before we get started, make sure that you mash that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the great NASCAR and motorsports content right here on the channel. And make sure you drop a comment down below. Where do you think Kyle Busch will end up in 2023? And what will become of Kyle Busch Motorsports? Let me know in the comments down below. No question about it, Kyle Busch leaving Joe Gibbs Racing is probably all but a certainty at this point. Kyle himself, in the media center, said this over the weekend.
Thankfully, there are opportunities out there. There is, cup jobs available, but it will not look the same as what it has for the last 15 years.
Now, a lot of people are jumping on that, saying, "Oh, it means he's out. He just confirmed it. He's out at Joe Gibbs Racing." Kind of, maybe, sort of. I mean, honestly, he's had M&Ms on his car and Mars brands for the last 15 years, so him re-signing with Joe Gibbs Racing is still technically a possibility. And yes, not having Mars, not having M&Ms on the car will look very different. So technically, he could still be with Joe Gibbs Racing next year. But I think he's done at Joe Gibbs Racing, because I've heard from multiple sources that Ty Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing both have entered negotiations with Cup sponsors for that 18 car next year. Now, maybe those are contingency meetings and precautionary meetings in case Kyle doesn't return, but honestly, I think he's done with Toyota. I think he's done with Joe Gibbs Racing. Both have stopped talking to each other and stopped negotiating because there's no sponsor money. Gibbs cannot afford to pay Kyle Busch. He ran into the same problem with Matt Kenseth a number of years ago, and he keeps running into it with the 20 car, which is why there's a new driver in that car every few years. Joe Gibbs literally doesn't have the backing. Toyota, despite the fact that they are Toyota, this big company, doesn't pay Joe Gibbs Racing that much to pay its drivers. Joe Gibbs Racing is known for being an extremely well-paid team, maybe the most well-paid team in the sport of NASCAR, meaning that their employees make significantly more money, which is a great thing. I'm all for paying people for what they're worth, but the fact of the matter is that Gibbs doesn't have the money to pay the one person they need to pay more than anybody, and that's Kyle Busch. So effectively, Gibbs is moving on from Kyle Busch and hiring Ty Gibbs to take over the 18 car. I've talked about it in previous videos. It's a brilliant move because Gibbs is young and he's very, 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 very cheap. Literally 1/10 of the price that Kyle Busch is, and he's young, so he can be in that car for decades to come potentially, and more than likely will be in that 18 car for decades to come. And the fact that that 18 car was the first car that Joe Gibbs Racing started fielding back in the early 90s means a lot to Joe Gibbs personally, and I think he wants his grandson in that car over the guy who won't take a pay cut. But the question remains, who were the options? Where will Kyle Busch end up in 2023? The Door Bumper Clear podcast weighed in on that this week, and this is actually very critical because what they're saying has a lot of validity to it, considering all three of them work in the Cup Series as spotters, and one of them works for one of the teams that Kyle Busch more than likely will be at in 2023.
We know where he's not going to end up. He's not going to end up back in that 18 car.
You don't think when he said this week things are going to look a lot different than they have for the last 15 years, that was pretty much a declaration of I'm out? I think if you're an odds maker, I think the favorite to land Kyle Busch right now is probably Kaulig Racing. Mm-hmm. I think there's two Chevy teams probably at the top of the list, and there's a Toyota team on the outside with a shot at it.
So you think Ford's done?
I think so.
How many people, we've asked this question on here before, how many owners can truly afford to hire Kyle Busch? Penske?
3, maybe 4.
Penske, Hendrick, Haas, Kaulig.
I 100% agree with what they're saying. They're right. They're 100% right. Those owners are the only ones who have deep enough pockets that they legitimately could pay Kyle Busch out of pocket. Rick Hendrick did it last season with Kyle Larson, and he's doing it still with Kyle Larson this season because he's seeing the return on his investment. It very much worked out for Hendrick, 10 wins and a championship last season, and something like a 700% increase in their online car sales for HendrickCars.com. So clearly, sponsoring your own car actually does pay off. But will Matt Kaulig do something different with Kyle Busch sliding into the 16? I actually think he will. I think that this deal's already done. Heard from a source that over the weekend, Joe Gibbs Racing staff members at Watkins Glen were talking about the fact that Kyle Busch already signed a deal with Kaulig Racing and that the announcement could come at Daytona or Darlington next week. I don't think that that announcement's coming that quickly necessarily, because there are so many more things than just Kyle Busch in play here. Yes, Kyle's got to think, where am I going to race for the next 6, 7, 8 years? But more specifically, he's thinking truck team, family. He's got a lot of things on his plate and many balls in the air that he's trying to juggle while figuring out where he's going to race. Now, I've seen the comments on previous videos. A lot of you think that, oh, Kyle Busch Motorsports doesn't need to change manufacturers. Yes, it does. If I'm Chevrolet and I'm paying some of Kyle Busch's salary to drive that number 16 Kaulig Racing Chevrolet next season and beyond, I'm going to be a little bit pissed off when he shows up to a truck race in a Toyota. So the Kyle Busch Motorsports truck team is a huge part of this equation. More specifically, where the number 4 of John Hunter Nemechek, the number 18 of Chandler Smith, and the number 51 that's a part-time truck with a rotation of drivers. What will happen with these 3 truck teams? Really, I see Kaulig not absorbing this team, but offering a lot of technical support through a transition, and it's going to be a massive transition, and we're almost in September here as of the recording of this video. In 6 months, trucks need to be heading down to the track at Daytona for the new season. That is not a lot of time for a massive truck organization like Kyle Busch Motorsports to essentially throw out every single truck body that they have and reskin every body that they have with the new Chevrolet bodies and get new Chevy engines in those trucks. It's a massive undertaking that is probably a 2-year negotiation for that transition, if not longer. Keep in mind, for multi-million-dollar sponsors to join the Cup Series, it takes about a year, 12 months, from the initial contact to the deal being done and a logo being put on the car. That is from insider information that is confirmed. So Kyle Busch doing this in the next 6 months, to say that it's rushed is an understatement. I do think we'll get an announcement sometime before Phoenix at the end of the season in November, but I do not see an announcement of Kyle Busch to Kaulig Racing anytime soon. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that announcement could come soon. Maybe Matt Kaulig literally wrote a blank check and Kyle Busch is going to be in the 16 car next year. It's a possibility. Matt Kaulig has deep pockets. He can definitely do that. But for Kyle Busch to transition Kyle Busch Motorsports over to Chevrolet means renegotiating things with John Hunter Nemechek, Chandler Smith, Corey Himes, everybody who's involved with Kyle Busch Motorsports. That's a lot of negotiation. That's a lot of work. And even if he has literally every single person at Kyle Busch Motorsports working with him on this, it's still a process that's going to take months and months and months. And it's only been about a month since we found out that Kyle Busch lost the potential sponsor for 2023. Now, there are still multiple possibilities. Yes, it is still possible that Kyle Busch could end up in either the number 41 Stewart-Haas Racing Ford or the number 10, but there were conflicting reports. One reporter jumped the gun and reported that Eric Almirola is back in 2023 in that 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing, but Eric himself debunked that very bluntly over the weekend at the Speedway, saying he hasn't made a decision yet and doesn't know if he'll be back. So if Eric Almirola does retire, then Kyle Busch very much could still end up at either the 10 car or the 41 Ford. But I agree with what the Door Bumper Clear podcast said. I don't think Stewart-Haas Racing is on the table anymore. There are multiple sponsors. There are multiple things happening over there. And I don't think Ford necessarily wants to or has the money to throw a blank check at Kyle Busch like Chevrolet does. And honestly, if I'm Kyle Busch, look at where the tide is taking these teams. Stewart-Haas Racing has had flashes of brilliance this year. Yes, Kevin Harvick did win 2 races, but for the most part, they have been struggling. That is a 4-car operation, and he essentially is going to be a big fish in a big pond. I think Kyle Busch doesn't necessarily like to be at a 4-car team anymore. Maybe he wants to be at a 2 or a 3-car organization, which means Kaulig fits the bill. Hendrick Motorsports doesn't fit the bill. A lot of content creators are saying, oh, he's going to Hendrick Motorsports next year, which I don't necessarily understand because all 4 of Hendrick's drivers are under long-term contracts. No one at Hendrick is going anywhere. I'd be extremely surprised if that happens. Possibility, yes, but a long shot nevertheless. I think that Kaulig is the best bet. I'm not ready to say it's official yet, but you know, it definitely looks like Kyle Busch is leaving Joe Gibbs Racing, and it's a matter of will Kyle Busch end up in the number 16, the number 10, or the number 41 next year. I honestly think those are the 3 options, and I think he's leaning towards the number 16 Kaulig Racing Chevrolet. But I want to hear from you. What do you think? Where's Kyle Busch going to end up in 2023? And more specifically, if you're Kyle Busch and you have a truck team with 3 drivers, and you're looking at Kaulig Racing and you're looking at Stewart-Haas Racing, which one are you choosing? But let me know what you think down below, and while you're there, make sure you mash that subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos as they drop. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give me a follow on the social media accounts at Hey Alan Bailey, and make sure that you check out AmericanRacingNetwork.com for the latest on where Kyle Busch will end up in 2023 and the latest motorsports news in general. I'm Alan Bailey. We'll see you at the track.